My name is Brett Palmares, and I'm a freshman student at Cypress High, and I'm doing an interview for an English project about the topic crime. What is your name?
My name is Julie Nielsen. I am a health teacher at Cypress High School, and Brett is in my class.
What does crime mean to you?
Crime has a lot of different. Crime in general means there's a law and you break it, right? So what does it mean to me is that there are different laws that kind of get broken, but there's also a part of me that thinks that sometimes some things that don't have legal meaning, it's like there's not a law against it and something happens to somebody, and even though there's not legal recourse, I still feel like some things are a crime, right?
Do you think it's like a social issue? It's like, you know how, like, example, like it might be like a crime, like abortion is like legal in some countries, it's not. So, like, do you think it's like a kind of
It's definitely a political issue. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
So it's definitely a political issue, and I do think it's a social issue because the way that cities are policed for these crimes really affects how a city operates.
What do you think causes crime? Like, what is the root?
Well, people commit crimes, clearly.
Yeah, people.
And there are various reasons. The law has different reasons for that. So, like, you hear something like on a murder show about like a crime of passion. Some people are premeditated, which means they planned it out. They knew that they were going to do something wrong. And then you have some people that have it's called mental illness or mental defects, which means that they have issues with their mental health. And so, but personally, those are a small amount of cases, the mental health issues. But personally, I believe that a lot of crime is caused not because people are bad, but the people are in bad situations. Like poverty. Or maybe they were raised in a situation where violence and crime is kind of like a way of life. Like when you think about like gangs, and the syndicates like that. So when you look at the history of gangs, what you actually find is that the big rise in gangs, the notorious times came when the United States passed a prohibition against alcohol. And when they do something like that, it cuts out a lot of jobs, and people needed money, and things that go on the quote unquote black market or they become illegal, they end up being more expensive, and people make a lot of money out of it. So when there's a country, if you think about what was going on in the 20s and like the 30s, the Depression came, right?
Yeah.
More and more people were moving into poverty, and they're trying to find ways to survive. And so when I see people that are committing crimes, most of the time I feel like you know that line in Biggie's song, like, I was just trying to feed my daughter. I feel like that's mainly a motivation. And I think for some people as well, it's that they're trying to have some power, because in places where there's poverty or there's a lot of violence, opportunities to learn and be successful aren't there, right? So it's not necessarily role model. Sometimes it's a culture, but mainly the same opportunities aren't afforded to them, and they're just trying to survive. So I don't justify crime. Okay, but because taking money from somebody else or taking something from somebody else is never okay. But at the same time, the issues of poverty, I think that those would change. There would be less crime.
So how do you think crime affects other people?
I think most people are judgmental about it, unless they've experienced it, and then they feel like an injustice has happened to them. So unless you've experienced it, it's that way. Some people are very judgmental. Sometimes you can watch a crime happening and it kind of can shock you mentally. So I think that it's a painful experience. some kind of negative emotion is going to arise. While other people, if you're from that culture, I think, unfortunately, I feel like there are some people who value crimes.
Oh.
Right? Mm-hmm. So they think it's cool and it's like what you can get away with and this and this and that, because a person who identifies as a gang member or whatever kind of character that's trying to commit crime, they kind of look at it and they're just kind of like, that person is quote unquote hard or better or knows how to get away with. They're smart. They have value.
Mm-hmm. So where do you think, like what type of areas do you think crime occurs?
Well, here's a great topic. Crime actually occurs everywhere. Mm-hmm. Okay. If you think about it, if you think like something basic like theft and stealing, okay, you're not normally going to see that in an area that is identified as middle class or higher money or people that have more money, because there's police. Yeah. There's a lot of policing. But you're not going to steal from someone's house. You're going to steal from businesses. Yeah. So business areas, okay? So urban cities like that, there's definitely a lot of crime that goes on there, okay? So if you're thinking about that. Now, when you think about like a crime like prostitution, which we now know is linked to human trafficking, some of that happens in really poor areas, but definitely, again, mainly in the street, and they targeting innocent victims. But they found out that there was party houses in the middle of very wealthy neighborhoods, like in the middle of Beverly Hills. Oh, yeah, I heard about that. Right? So crime actually happens everywhere. And there's also different kinds of crime. So there's violent crime, there's petty crime, there is white-collar crime. So this is like when you embezzle money, so you're not really hurting anybody, that type of thing. So it can happen everywhere, and all of it is wrong.
Yeah. What do you do when you see crime?
If I'm in danger, I'm going to try to save myself first. If I can help somebody, I will, and I have. There's hit and runs on the freeway. I've pulled over, stayed with somebody to make sure that they were okay, that type of thing. I've witnessed a boy with his skateboard hitting a homeless guy on the head, and he passed out. So you stayed there to help for the emergency. I was a witness, that type of thing. I've had a gun pulled out on me before, so like I've experienced that type of thing. If you've experienced watching a fight, that's technically a crime, right? So when I was younger, I would have to admit that, you're one of the people that want to see what's going down in a fight. But then as I got older, I usually do my best again to either get out of the situation or be in a situation where I'm not involved but can see what's going on. And I will call, like I don't hesitate to call the police. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like I don't mind involving authorities at all. But then sometimes when you see somebody that's hungry, that's committed a crime, like,
kind of feel pity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of depends on what that situation is, because technically it's wrong, but I also don't think a business is going to lose its business over like a piece of fruit, Yeah. That's how I feel, and it's not necessarily right, but I justify it that way.
I get that a lot.
I think that there are a lot of our students who are committing crimes, and I would rather work with them than call the police. And if I know the person, I'd rather talk to them. But it's actually kind of funny because I have a joke with my friends where, like, if you guys commit a crime, please don't use me as your alibi, because I will tell the truth. Straight up. Just kind of like a joke. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I did grow up in areas that were gang infested, and that mentality was out there, and people were struggling to survive. But it was always very clear to me on what side of the law I wanted to stay on.
I think that's it. Thank you, Ms. Nielsen.